Hey guys, welcome back for another episode of The Suited Shootist. I'll try and make this one a little bit shorter this week. And what I want to talk about is the infamous sub-second draw, the draw to first hit speed that is a very trendy topic amongst the defensive shooting space. And the premise behind the emphasis isn't wrong, because obviously first hits, by all accounts from people who've been there, are what win gunfights and defensive encounters. However, there's a lot of focus strictly on the quantifiable delivery of the skill, meaning the draw to first hit, because I think that's the easiest to practice, and it's also the easiest to quantify. But what I really think is kind of missed is what I want to talk about today. And so if you follow John Correa over on Active Self-Protection, he has done a really good job of breaking down kind of how much time you've got based on how focused the threat is on you. So, for example, if they're turned like a quarter turn, you've got roughly a second to draw and deliver a hit. If you can see their ear, it gives you roughly a second and a half, et cetera, et cetera. And he does a really good job of breaking all that down. And it's useful information, but where I think people, not John, because he's just putting that data out there, but where people fall short in interpreting that information is this. You can control where the person is looking to a degree. Obviously, the other guy gets a vote, but if, for example, like myself, I know that my cold on-demand performance is, 1.55-ish, give or take, to an A zone at 5 yards, well, then there are things that I can do in order to create the environment that I need in order to execute the program. And the folks that really fixate on the performance side of shooting will always say, well, speed is a tactic. And they're not wrong. But so is verbal agility. And that's, I think, the really critical part. Because if I know what my cold on-demand performance is, and I know that the circumstances as they stand are such that it's not the appropriate window of opportunity, it's still the same timing decisions that Craig Douglas talks about in his entangled fighting, where if you're within arm's reach of somebody, you need to make sure that the limb closest to the weapon is controlled before you try and start accessing tools. Otherwise, it just becomes a drag race to the gun. So all you're doing is extrapolating that concept, because it's still a timing decision. The difference is that instead of instead of the threat being close enough that they can stuff your draw or what have you, the idea is that what you're trying to do is create a wide enough window of opportunity to get inside their reaction time. And honestly, if you're a fan of classic cinema, then everybody is familiar with this move.
Jews? What in the world can that be? What? Where?
And so that's kind of the point that I think people miss is, obviously, you want to get your skills high. You want to get them to a point where they are sustainable. And this also goes back to the video I did a couple weeks ago about, unfortunately, you can be good. You can do everything right. And sometimes things still just don't go your way. But I think it is important to understand that just the raw mechanical skill set is not the only part of that equation that you can control in order to generate the desired outcome. And so if I know that I need to be able to see the guy's ear in order to create the window I need to deliver good, first round hits, why not do that? And this is why the verbal agility piece, the social fluency piece, matter. Because, effectively, it's social engineering, Admittedly, admittedly, the whole, oh my God, what's that, is probably a little too contrite to actually work. But if phrased correctly, or if framed appropriately, there are absolutely ways to redirect somebody's attention to create windows of opportunity. I'm not going to talk about the examples that I've seen, mostly because they were either in coursework that people really should go pay to be exposed to, or they were, shared to me in confidence. But just like speed is a tactic, so is your verbal agility. And that's why I think it's so critical, because the verbal agility piece isn't just being able to talk to people so that you don't inadvertently exacerbate a situation and turn something that wasn't going to be a fight into a fight. But it's also being able to verbally manipulate. I mean, verbal judo is a term that is aggressively overused, but talking about it in the most literal terms, that's what we're talking about here. Using words in order to manipulate somebody's thinking and behavior. So it's definitely a valuable skill set that needs to be maintained just as aggressively as your draw to first hit time. The challenge is that it's a little bit more challenging, to work, because you need a training partner, and it's not as quantifiable, but it is absolutely still worth pursuing. So if you've got questions on kind of how to do that, or if you have tips on how you have kind of honed and developed your verbal agility, I want to hear about that down in the comments. Aside from that, that's what I got for you. So I hope you have a fantastic week. Stay dangerous and stay sharp.